We're getting carried away here.
Well, we do. All right. Good morning. Welcome everyone to another NextOppSocial live discussion, live chat here. As always, I'm Richelle Wright Wilson. I'm joined by Joanne Buford, and today we are excited to introduce Godwin Inhentuge. Did I say that?
Yo,
okay. All right.
Hey.
He's the founder of Yumvillage, and we're excited to bring him here to NextOppSocial. Godwin refers himself as the chef villager of the Afro-Caribbean hotspot Yumvillage in New Center, and he's always working to create a community through cuisine well known in his Nigerian community, but newer to the Detroit neighborhood. But so before we jump in, learning more and chatting more, as always, if you're watching with us here either on the live or the replay, please make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an interview, a live, or miss out on any of the incredible discussions we have here at NextOppSocial. All right, let's get into it. Welcome again, Godwin. Thank you again for joining us here today. We're excited to have you and talk about your journey. So we'll jump into it. Tell us more about yourself, your background, and we were already talking about it, but we're all about entrepreneurship. But why did you fall in love with being an entrepreneur?
So, to be honest with you, I fell in love with being an entrepreneur because it was just this thing that's just always been a part of my life. I remember seeing business on the TV screen when I was 5 years old. It was like on some news article, they were talking about people in business for themselves. I was like, Dad, what is business? And he was like, look on the screen, you'll learn how to spell it, and then you can go and look that up at the library and get everything you need to know about business. And I was like, okay, you know, that's kind of like how I had to grow up in my house. So it's always been a part. And I would just have all of these different jobs for people all the time. And I remember my very first job out of college, I was fortunate enough to have my capstone professor helping me search for a job, and within 6 months, I was able to work for a company that was publicly traded at the time as an intern. And within 6 months of being an intern at that company, I became a manager. I got to skip right to manager. I didn't have to deal with any of those BS associate titles, you know, saying the cream rises to the top. And then during that time, as well as working in many other roles, and I was a district manager for a company at one point. I was a director of marketing and development, so I had to be responsible for people coming and reviewing the aspects of the company, in addition to also helping raise fundraising dollars. You know, and so all of these experiences, like I think in my lifetime, I've held over 45 different full-time positions, of which 10 of them were career-oriented positions. And all of these, I say that to say that I eventually got fed up. I think it was like, I want to be involved with the decision-making from the ground up, with a company that will be able to pursue impact and make a difference. And I found that a lot of times in most of the roles that I was in, whether that impact was something that I wanted to be a part of, or whether that impact made sense for me. They always say when you're working, do something that you love. It won't feel like work. I didn't really necessarily understand that. Like, I love cooking and I love like interacting and creating things, you know, but at the end of the day, I promise you, it still feels like work. You just gotta love you just gotta love it no matter what. So I'm in business right now because I have a very strong urge and desire to pursue some goals that I've set up with my Mastermind Alliance, along with directly impacting. I see myself being involved in the G20s one day. I see myself owning a private island one day. And, you know, if anyone's ever watched State Property, you know that you just can't do that. You know, I can't keep the Ferrari doing Honda stuff. So that's essentially what happened. I decided to pursue the Ferrari and leave that Honda life behind.
I love it. I love it. 45 jobs.
Oh yeah, I've done it all. I've been a rock wall climbing instructor. I was a canvasser for wall side windows. I've done quite a bit of everything.
So, I'm this is a leading question. I'm about to hand you a softball. But it was one of those, it was one of the reasons why you caught my attention when we sat down over a year ago, right? It was your professional background. And
Mhm.
I know as entrepreneurs, sometimes we want to skip that process. We want to skip going and working at different places. We just want to jump right into it. But I love your background because I think it's a testament to the value of actually getting that work experience and actually being in environments and acquiring skills. And so you're better prepared, right? And most people don't
Mhm.
think about it that way. But, how did the 45 jobs, how did this professional and executive experience, how do you think it benefited you when you launched Yumvillage?
Yeah.
How did this foundation prepare you for it?
So I think it prepared quite a lot. And I do want to just put out one note on the cap there with me and just with anybody is that you definitely still need to self-educate or just get educated in general. I think the rule of thumb is that if you're not reading at least one book a week, you should try to fit in like 3 to 4 in a year, one a quarter, because after college and after high school, you don't have that required curriculum going on, and so your acumen gets tested. You think every year that you don't get new knowledge, your shelf life drops by half a year. So if you go one full year without acquiring any new skills or maintaining what you learned, then in year two you're actually behind by 2 years just
Mm-hmm.
because of the rate at which technology is now increasing, the rate at which information changes hands and gets accessible to people. So you definitely still have to pursue that. In addition to that, these different jobs have helped me because I put me in a position where I had to build skill sets that you don't typically have access to, such as critical thinking or um, conflict resolution, or just how to come up with an idea together in a group setting. These are skills that a lot of people just don't have. And through it, I was not only able to build workplace acumen and get like that experience necessary to have more confidence in my overall plan. Like a lot of times, if you don't have confidence or a plan, you get steered wherever the wind takes you. And if that's the case, you don't have a destination. You're just aimlessly floating. Um, so these are all very much important reasons why we gotta push, and self-educate and keep it driving. The other thing that I was able to come away with is something that I think isn't necessarily talked about a lot in the workplace environment and careers, but it's just as important is emotional intelligence. I
Mhm.
think that a lot of people don't have the equipment to deal with their emotions in a workplace setting, especially because we just don't go through these things. Like some people, I still see this happen where you'll get slighted by somebody. And then rather than attack that head on and feel and directly talk to the person, this person will move around disgruntled as if the person they're upset with will magically know what is happening and then go out of their way to make so are just stuff that just happens with time and experience of working with many, many different personalities over many, many years to complete projects.
I love it. That's fantastic, man. We are going to have to take a snippet of that and play it repeatedly throughout the year because
Yeah.
you're right. It's like, man, that emotional intelligence piece and being able to develop and negotiate relationships so absolutely imperative. And I'm gonna give you another softball. I did a little bit of research on you before we jumped on here, and from our previous conversations, I thought it was really cool too. Speaking of relationships, that you actually introduced Yumvillage in the new center area. Like,
Hmm.
you know, I've seen so many business owners come and go. I mean, I've seen business owners launch and then be gone 2 seconds later,
Right.
trying to establish themselves in the new center area. And I thought that was so bold of you to make the decision to do that. You know, what inspired you? I mean, tell us a little bit about your
Yeah.
background, your relationship with the community.
Yep. So I went to U of D Jesuit Academy in Detroit. And then from there, I was recruited to play football at Wayne State. So I had been coming to Wayne State as a senior in high school um, for quite some time, just to acclimate myself with the neighborhood, the areas. And my father, he worked for the state building right there on West Grand Boulevard in Woodward. And
Remember that?
prior to that, there was an ethnic food store on West Grand Boulevard as well that
Mhm.
serviced the community. They provided plantain, agusi, a lot of the stuff that we actually make at the restaurant right now, which is one of the reasons why we're also transitioning to market pantry so we can kind of pay homage to that. But really, the big reason is just because I got roots there, man. Those are my stomping grounds. I went to Wayne State University there. I was in the area for quite some time. Beyond football, I was in student government at Wayne State for 2 years. You know, when I was a sophomore and freshman there, my face was all over the website, all over the welcome CD. I organized as part of student government. I organized the on-campus experience because when I was there, I was my first year on campus at Wayne State was the first year that they did that stuff, and I took it upon myself to get involved in committees to make that welcoming process that much more special for incoming freshmen and sophomores, just because I believed in it. So I've been in the area and community for quite some time. I even helped and volunteered with Midtown Inc. A lot of people don't know this, but I served as a marketing consultant for Midtown Inc. for 2 years. And so Midtown Inc. Paid me to go and talk with different restaurants and help them perform their businesses better. La Palma being a few of those examples. And so even before I laid roots in the Mid-City or Midtown area, I was in there working with businesses to help them get their stuff back on track, whether it be helping them cut their payroll costs or just get a deep dive into what makes the ins and outs of their business tick healthily. So, I'm in New Center just because it's important to me. And then also, I find it really lame that all of these businesses open up in the city without having a representation of the city working there
Mhm.
and without catering to the city. Like I never understood how a restaurant opens up in the city without asking that city, do you want us to be here? Like they're like, oh, this restaurant closed, right? I was like, well, did that restaurant ask the neighborhood that they opened up in if they want to be serving this type of food and all that? Detroit is 85% Black. And I feel like it's Black history that we're doing Afro-Caribbean food on Woodward in a community where we've hired people from the city. Like you come in the Yumvillage, it looks like Detroit. It doesn't look
Right.
like one of these new restaurants in Detroit that's serving you $20 sandwiches and stuff. You can get a $5 item at Yumvillage just as much as you can get a $20 item at Yumvillage. We care about the city. We're from the city, and because of that, we do things like offer accessible menus. We pay sustainable wages. Everyone makes $15.50 an hour plus tips, in addition
Mhm.
to tuition reimbursement as well as projects. Anybody at Yumvillage can answer the question, behavioral-based interview questions. That give me a time in which you worked in a workplace setting and contributed to a project long term. Anyone at Yumvillage can say that.
I love it. I love it. That's impressive. Now, I got to chide you a little bit, man.
What's
The
up?
restaurant industry, I just have so much respect and regard for you. Like, I know about how slim those margins are, how
Man,
challenging
there's
it
nothing.
is, man, how fickle it can be. You got
Yeah.
a close up look at it and saw it
Yeah.
and did it
Hmm.
anyway.
Yeah.
So, they say entrepreneurs, they tiptoeing a little bit of crazy and a little bit of insanity.
Yeah. Yeah, operate on the edge a little bit. This goes right back into like why people get in the business and stuff. So like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times you talk to somebody, you're saying why you're in business and they give you the reason. But the aspect of entrepreneurship is to efficiently transact as many times as possible, right? So like if you're a business owner, you can sell the hot dog and the bun for $5 and it only costs you 30 cents a unit, then that's what you do, right? And then you like build upon that. Like most people, they get into the business and they're like, oh, I want to do like hoopla. And I want to like, oh, this person is like, oh yeah, this is also part of the business too. Like every 15 minutes, someone's gonna call you and tell you that, oh, this thing is gonna change your business and it's gonna like you're gonna like make so much money and blah blah blah, right? And it's sad because we're in the world with Ubers and whatnot. Like 5 years ago, mom and pops weren't dealing with delivery. You can get delivery from anywhere you wanted 10 years ago. And now you can. But the problem is still the aspect of business. People don't have that acumen to do something as simple as like a break-even analysis, right? So like if you buy this equipment, how long will it take you before you can buy another piece of equipment without not breaking even? People don't do that. They just buy equipment, buy equipment, buy equipment. Losses all on there. P&Ls. They don't know. They're not doing it. But for me, just to just provide some context on the industries a little bit more. But for me, and to answer your question, I went specifically with food because I plan on leveraging the social capital that comes with food. So when you look at like a Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola makes quite a bit of their money by not selling Coca-Cola because they make it doing other things. And so when you think about food, everybody got to eat. That's like the number one thing. Everybody is going to be eating. And so if you can create a product and keep in mind the numbers, like people don't keep in track with the numbers, 18% of the consumer dollar goes towards food. This includes grocery, this includes meal plans, this includes eating out. So less of that is going to be in the restaurant. So like if I know that 100% of people are going to get food, but only 18% of that 100% is going towards food, then I've got to put it in my shoes to be like, okay, we do food, but our end goal is to do food plus. So like we do food and t-shirts, we do food and spices, we do food and sauces. And with Cholula just getting bought out for $800 million by McCormick's and Campbell's buying out Garden Fresh salsa for some smooth 60 million bucks, right? In my eyes, we're known as a restaurant, but on the back end, we're a manufacturing place. Like we're working on getting our licensing with the Department of Agriculture so that we can sell our spices, our sauces, and all of that stuff in the restaurant, but equally inside of a Kroger or a Myers. Our end goal is if we can make it so that you can get jollof and African foods at the same clip and capacity that you can get spaghetti, then that's where we're gonna be at. So we're in the restaurant industry, but our goal is to transition from the restaurant industry to other aspects, selling ovens, selling knives, all of that stuff. So we're gonna be an Afro-Caribbean Trader Joe's or something like that down the line.
I love it. I love it. You just knocked it out the park, man. I was going to ask you what's separating you from your competition, but I think you've dealt with that question adequately now in terms of how you've been able to continue to thrive and continue to have success despite, I mean, we know what 2020 has been, right?
Yeah. It's been, 2020 was good for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
talked to one of my, there's this Marcus Market in Wayne State University. When I used to watch them. I grew up there, like 17 in college. I'm like 36 now. These were one of the first examples of entrepreneurship that I witnessed. I said to my father, and their sales were up 22% in 2020. So it was bad for some people, but some people were able to thrive and make it work. and the external aspects of business are always going to be there. You know, if
Mhm.
it wasn't Corona, it's going to be something else.
So for you with 2020, because you've got big goals and you're building an empire with, that starts with Yumvillage. How did you find yourself pivoting more, shifting more, adjusting more, or were you able to kind of, keep staying the course and building what you're building here?
Yeah, so fortunately, the plan for Yumvillage has always been empire. If anything, coronavirus has kind of propelled us a little bit faster into getting to that lane. You know, like if coronavirus didn't happen, then we would have been spending quite a bit more of our time transitioning our audience to going online. We still were a restaurant focused on our physical presence, and then our goal was to get people in there physically, get them on the newsletter, get them engaged with our digital presence. But with coronavirus, 90% of our transactions now happen online. And so with that, we have an avenue to do things like sell Eat Jollof Rice t-shirts and sell meal plans. We're doing something around 200 refrigerated meal plans, grabbing those that you can take home a day. Whereas we wouldn't be doing those types of things if we weren't making this online transition.
Fantastic. You've talked about the success, but also we know there's inevitable challenges, right? Aside from things that you can't anticipate, like the coronavirus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think about this a lot because there's a flip side to this discussion. Because people grow up with restaurants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so a part of what it is to be a U.S. citizen, right? That's just what we do. We eat out. People will have the assumption that, look, because I eat out, because I know how to cook, because I know how to do these things, I'm going to go ahead and set up a restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and acquire this building or create this food truck. Or, of course, we know there are people who, behind closed doors, they start right out their basements, right? Selling the plates.
Yeah,
For those
my
individuals,
first food sold was with food stamps. I was doing the same thing.
Yeah. For those individuals who might be contemplating, I never want to defecate people's cornflakes, right? I never want to crush dreams here. That's not what we do here. But for individuals who are considering starting up a restaurant or starting up some type of food hospitality business, what cautionary tales would you share?
Well, I feel like a lot of people, so a couple things, right? You have to be ready to have the attitude of sacrifice, right? There's this whole don't sink your ships. I think when the settlers came here, they burned their ships. That way they forced them into survival, and so I think a lot of people, when I was a mortgage banker at Quicken Loans and I was trying to do Yumvillage, I was only able to secure a few contracts because the majority of my time was still spent mortgage banking. But then when I no longer had that, sexy Quicken Loans check coming in my bank account every month, it put me in a position where I just had to think critically about how I earned dollars and my actions. So if you have a job and you get a $5 coffee every day, 5 times 365, you're gonna have to cut that one out, right? There's a lot of things that you'll just have to do as a business owner that no one else is going to do for you, and you won't be able to blame anybody if these things don't get done. Case in point, my very first Yumvillage dinner, I only had 15 people come to that dinner. And of those 15 people, I think 8 people wanted a refund. And the other 7 or so people that you could tell they were like just supporting me. And so, 3 years from that moment, I was doing events with 767 people in the audience. And so, but to get there, I had to do all sorts of things, like learn the material or read the book or study this, right? No one's or research that, right? These actionable steps can be replaced by no one but, yourself. And then the other aspect is you got to be the first one to do it. Like a lot of people aren't going to buy your thing. They're not going to listen to you. They're going to laugh at you. This is life. This is the way it is. It's how we respond to these actions and how we move forward from them that separates us from the people who you see on the TV screens, or the people who you're like, man, somehow, Jay-Z and Beyonce have this massive empire, right? Like somehow Beyonce did a Coachella concert and I wasn't able to watch it until it was on Netflix, right? But they don't tell you that she got the rights to her music, and so that's why you can see it. You had to wait, whereas many other guys who did Coachella wasn't thinking like that. They was like, oh yeah, let me get paid to do this concert, and then you guys can play my shit everywhere, right? Beyonce was like, no, I'm gonna get paid to do this concert, which you guys have to wait a year so I can have my twins first, and then I want to still keep all my content and take it to Netflix and get another check, right? So these are like, it's not so much cautionary tales. You just got to be ready to do the thing, right? Like you want to be a business owner, you don't just get to be like, oh, I'm going to be a business owner. The moment you enter that arena of entrepreneurship, you are compared to all of the other people, whether you like it or not. You sell food, you're going to be compared to Panera Bread. You don't like it, tough. That's how it is. You're going to have to overcome that if you want to stay in the biz. If not, then don't do it. That's the simple advice I got for you. This is not for the meek. You will find yourself crying and whatnot, and that's okay. But you're gonna have to get up and do it, and you're gonna have to deal with losses. First year of the food truck, I did pig and whiskey. The buy-in to get into pig and whiskey is $6,000. You gotta pay them $6,000 just to show up, and then on top of that, you still gotta buy food for however many people you trying to sell to or not. More than $6,000, I hope, right? And so, long story short, I still took a loss on that event. I didn't make any money. We did a total of about $18,000 or something for that, which 6 had to go back to them. I still had to pay for the food costs, which is like 30-something% of that. And then I also had to staff it, right? Plus market it to people and let them know, hey, I'm going to be here, as well as they put me by the dumpster. This is like stuff that, as a first-time entrepreneur, you learn to deal with. And like, like this is poor placement, all of these things. So that's on you. There's not going to be any, like, you want to take partners and take partners. But at the end of the day, the buck is going to stop with you. And you have to accept that if you are looking around the products and the spoils of your endeavors, and you see that it is lacking, you need look not anywhere but that mirror to see where the problem is. And you have to be able to accept the result and consequence of that look. You can't make any excuse. Oh, it's cold outside, right? My favorite thing is like the people in sales, like it's raining outside, right? They're like, oh, no one's going to be out there. It's raining, right? No, but the best person is going to be like, oh, it's raining. People probably at home. It's a great time to go catch them, right? And
Yes,
they go and yeah, so that's it, man. You got to do the work. You can't shy away. There's no cautionary tale here outside of be prepared to do the work. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Don't waste your time. Go get a job. Go live that life.
I love it. I love it. That's real talk. I want to do a deeper dive here, right? It's something that probably isn't shared enough, but in business, and you spoke to it, right? In business, sometimes you're doing a lot of work that you don't get paid for. So later on, you can be compensated for work you no longer have to do, right?
Right.
But in that beginning of doing work that you're not getting paid for, you better have a financial plan as well, right? You need to have some type of mechanism, strategy, tactics, a way to kind of get you through those tough times and managing that stress so you can stay focused on the goal. We don't talk about that a lot in the entrepreneurial community. And, it's a question that wasn't asked, or, we didn't we didn't share it before, but if you care to extrapolate, what are some of the things you did, man, when you were going through that period, when you were making those type of investments?
Yeah.
I,
Well, so here's like some stuff. So like I'm like a saver even when I'm not, like if I'm like blowing money or being irresponsible, I still like will put some money up. And so like when I quit my job at Quicken Loans, I still had about like 15, 20 grand saved up. Like they're paying me six figures. I already had something saved up. So at that point, when I quit my job to start Yumvillage, I was I had a little bit of savings to live off of. And my philosophy was that like I like listening to like podcasts like how things work or like how I built this and stuff. So the guys who started Five Guys, the way that they started their business, he purchased his building for about $45,000, had his wife and kids working with him there, so he didn't hire any employees, and he had his kids pick all the product, which is interesting and notable because that's backwards in the food industry. Typically, you like forecast out and say, "Look, I'm going to sell this for $5. It's going to cost me $2. That's going to give me 26% food cost." There you have your performer. I sell 50 of these. I make this, give me this money or whatever, right? And so in his particular case, he didn't do that. He was like, "Yo, kids, whatever tastes good, you get it." And so he was at the Whole Foods buying $7 gourmet buns and then putting those with the hamburger, and then people buying it, and then whatever that price was, then he adjusted it and sold it that way. They tell you not to do it that way. It's suicide or whatever, right? But they don't know what they're talking about because every day I talked to in March didn't know what to tell me, right? So they is overrated at times, right? The bigger thing is when you have those aspects of the finances, you gotta lay them down. In my case, I knew that we were gonna do the food, we were gonna make X amount of dollars off. We were gonna pay people 15 an hour. I was gonna go based off of volume. So, my goal is to sell as much as possible. Like a lot of people think of us as a fast food place. They're like, "Oh, my food, it took you 15 minutes to get my food," right? That's great. But people want us to do McDonald's stuff, right? Which is a compliment that we're only a year and a half open as a restaurant so far, but still have the same expectations that you would have for like a McDonald's or something like that. And the other aspect of it is that I had a good partner in Megan. Megan paid the bills for like the first 3 years of the food truck / brick and mortar. So like when I was doing Yumvillage alone before Megan, I was like paying my own bills and doing all that stuff. But it definitely helped to not have to put money that you're making as an entrepreneur in your first year back into life expenses because it's not the same. I was making six figures at Quicken Loans and I shrivel up to like probably myself making 5 grand for the year. In my first year doing pop-ups as a business. And you're like, man, like, how do I get to the point where I'm making six figures, right? And you have to build those systems. You got to build those products. You got to do those things. And without a financial plan in place, it could become cumbersome because you're not trying to sit down and deal with the qualms of decision fatigue, which is a real thing when you got bills and mouths to feed. So,
Yep.
I was fortunate that I had a plan before getting with Megan, and then Megan and I got together, and then Megan jumped in with the plan, and now I'm at a point where we split the bills, whereas before she paid for all of them. So those partnerships in life also go hard as well.
I love it. I love it. As I'm listening to you, God, when you speak prophetically, right? You speak success, you speak abundance, you speak prosperity. There's an assumption in how you talk about yourself and your business that you're going to win, right?
Yes.
Yeah, clear as day, right? And I don't need to tell you, I'm speaking to the choir, right? A lot of business owners lack that. And I tell them, you're only going to achieve as far as you believe, right? And there's a lot
Exactly.
of different axioms and metaphors I could use, but you get the gist of it, right? To
Right.
have that type of belief and faith, but that doesn't come, depending on the household you're in, that doesn't come naturally. It's not like you just wake
It's,
up and you have it, right?
I mean, I don't have it
What?
now. I'm just
Yeah, exactly. What's, for the listener audience, I just know this is such an important piece of entrepreneurship. We don't get a chance to talk about it. And I was so excited to chat because I knew you had this, right? How do you inculcate that? How do you continue to build belief? How did you build it in the first place? How did you develop that muscle?
Well, so I honestly, it's just as simple as believing, man. Like I like manifest, and so what I mean is I'm not like I'll use private islands online, right? So when people holler at me, I was working as a mortgage banker at Quicken Loans, and we all had money. We would go out in places and stuff. So like we would go out to lunch at some expensive restaurant. And so I remember, I think about this a lot because everyone was so like everyone looked at me so differently after that lunch, and it just stuck with me. But our DMB, our director of mortgage banking at the time, he had us all grab a napkin and write down 5 of our goals. And so, I wrote down I was gonna be an empire owner. Yumvillage was gonna be the next Google of food, and I was gonna have a private island, and all of these things, right? And so the DMV, he took it upon himself to deep dive me on my goals. He's like, how are you gonna have a private island? And my response is like, well, Sotheby's International and Private Islands Online list your average private island somewhere between 15 million and 45 million. And as long as I can put myself in a position where I have a disposable income to afford that, which I can get to by doing this type of business and producing this at this type of GDP, I feel like I could get there at 45 if I become a millionaire and do these things, right? So I was very, very serious about this because I take it serious. Like I don't just say stuff just to say it. Like I believe. And so I take the actionable steps of believing, right? People say they're gonna own an island, but if they really believe that they're gonna own that island, then they would be able to answer how they're gonna own this island, right? And so I think that belief system with me goes beyond just the words of it. I also engage in the actionable steps of that belief system. I build on it. I manifest it. So like me looking at this stuff every day and believing I can get to it, I think adds to that belief system. Me, like, I had an ex who was a doctor, and she would tell me every day, blah, 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 you never went to culinary school and blah, 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 this and stuff, But I cook every day. I cook around chefs every day, Michelin star chefs, 4 5-star chefs. I cook around these people. This is my life, So, I don't need to go to culinary school. It's right here, So, in my head, if I would have listened to that, I wouldn't have been where I'm at. People just now started calling me chef a couple years ago. But in the beginning, people didn't call me chef. I have people in my core friend group who I've gone to high school, college with, who went to culinary school. I didn't go to culinary school. So in the conversations, I could either be like, yo, I'm going to do some chefing too and deal with oh, you didn't go to culinary school. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be a chef, right? Or I could just shut up and realize that these people don't pay my bills, and I'm just going to focus on me and doing what I need to do. And that is reading the books, working with different chefs to build the acumen to be able to cook at a high clip and do it and just doing the work, So I believe because I really believe. I don't just say it, like I'm like, yeah, Yumvillage is going to be a market pantry and we're going to do all of this stuff, right? But in the background, like I've contacted over 10 different boutique level grocery and marketplaces. I've talked to the owners. I've sat down and tried my best to get a P&L peek. And if they don't give me a quick peek at their P&L, then I am asking them follow-up questions. What do you pay for your utility bills month over month in the summer versus blah, blah, blah. And they're like, why would you ask me that type of question? It's like, why would I not? We're business owners, right? I don't want your business. I'm all the way on the other side of the city. You can't tell me what that answer is. I'll tell you what mine is. 4,000. That's what I pay. What's yours? Like, you know, we get that stuff out of the way, right? You know, so I'm active in my belief system just as much as I believe, you know. So I know I made that joke like I'm like hard to believe, but I do believe, you know, like I believe even now, right? You know, without a truck, without a car to my name, living in a 2-bedroom apartment with Megan, that by the time I'm 46, I will have my own island somewhere where I'll be able to just go and hide from people and recuperate and then come back recharged, ready to make more money.
I'm gonna go a little bit deeper with you because I think this piece is so important.
Mm-hmm.
You said something that caught my attention about maybe 1/4 of the way in. You said you see it.
Yes.
You see it. So that means I know you've done some vision planning. That means
Yeah.
I know you have some affirmations written down somewhere, man. I know you have the journals.
Yeah.
I know you have reminders all around you, right?
Yes. Yes.
There's a book out there. The author's name is Kersey. The title of the book is Unstoppable, where she talks about Lance Armstrong. And I mean, she just mentions the who's who. He might not be the best example. He cheated, but anyway.
Yeah. It's
but
cool.
Anyway, yeah. She started, but they basically cover all these entertainers, athletes, business person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as I was reading the book, the one thing I noticed, man, is their goals were like almost omnipotent, meaning they were everywhere all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't go into a bathroom, living room, dining room, get in their car. They couldn't do anything about their goals being in front of them all the time. And as I'm listening to you, I know that's part of your process. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what that process looks like for you? What's that routine, man, to keep things, stay focused on the focus and stay focused on the dream, even despite the fact you're dealing with the daily grind that you have to deal with to be successful?
Yeah. Yep. So it's actually like, you know, pretty routine. You know, I wake up in the morning. I usually listen to Jim Rome or Les Brown or one of those types of guys. The founder A.L. Williams, Walt, I listen to him a lot too. And so I start my day off with like just some positive food, like some positive brain food, because a lot of people really don't take control of what their thought process is, right? And so I'm very, very vigilant on my thought process, right? Like and then I question everything. Like people will be like, "Oh man, I got that for you." Like, well, you know, get it for me, and I'm just gonna watch you do it then, or get it for me, and I'm gonna do it myself. So I like I'm very purposeful in like just how I process information and how I move in the day. And so even my passwords are affirmations, you know. So like when I'm using a password, which I use like 30 times a day, you know, to get through like email or whatever, I'm, you know, putting that affirmation in, you know, you the man, whatever the password is, right? You know, and then I even have it in our place of work, you know. So like at Yumvillage, we have these things called Yumvillage Pros or Yumvillage Proverbs, which I actively use throughout the day and a lot of the stuff, you know. So like fast alone, farther together. You know, it takes time to do it right. You know, make it look pretty. You know, eat what you kill. Next man up. Push the pace. You know, so we're everyone at the restaurant is constantly affirming these things to each other. Put points on the board, then get up one. You know, like we're saying these things to each other constantly. And so, you know, in addition to that, I also do keep a journal. And so in that journal, I'm like, yo, these are the things that happened to me, blah, blah, blah. And mainly for myself, because it does help. But then, you know, when I become famous and I do my like entourage style sitcom TV show, I want to be able to have reference material to go back to. And so I keep an active journal for that purpose as well. Because I see like everybody hates Chris. that's going to be Godwin. Like it's going to be multiple TV shows about the Yumvillage story. Like from how we got started, to how we ended up.
I love it. I love it. What are some things that when the pandemic hit and really started to put the squeeze to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any specific strategies, tactics that you employed to help you make the shift, right?
Yeah.
I know something you mentioned earlier was number one, just being prepared, right?
Mm-hmm.
This year it's a pandemic, but there's going to be pandemics that come into your life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
All the time,
Family pandemics, financial pandemics, health personal health pandemic. These things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned earlier, you talked about emotional intelligence, which really caught my attention too, that people aren't equipped with the tools, right? They don't have the tools to deal with the stuff that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of these tools or strategies that you employed to transition and be able to do what you needed to do when the pandemic started to put the squeeze to you?
Yeah, so one thing I'm very active is like I do have mentor lunches like quite a bit, like once a month or so. And so like I reached out to my entire mentor core group and was like, yo, what's the move? And only like maybe 3 of them gave me some like real solid answers, but they're like real bosses. So they were, they probably equipped more people for this type of stuff. So I think the honest to goodness truth for this particular situation is that I read a lot of science fiction. And so my buddy and I always joke that science fiction is future fiction. And in a lot of these contexts or situations, existences, the world, you're like, how did I think I'll use Handmaid's Tale, for example. But people are like, how did the world get to that point where they have this type of totalitarian government and all of this stuff? And you see in these situations that it's simpler than people think. And even in the case of the United States, right? We have something that hasn't happened since the founding of our country.
Since Andrew Adams.
You said what?
Since Andrew Adams.
Since Andrew Adams,
yeah.
Yep. And that we had people who were not publicly elected hold positions of office that they still have. And then these same people instituted policy that was based off of nothing. It's like, we're going to do this now because they said so. Right? Who are these people? Who put them in position? Right? And so because the world can do that, it made me realize. And then plus because I retail and I'm like a big, like I tell people all the time, like, almighty dollar is never going to go anywhere, right? And so like being a district manager at Target, I knew that schools were not closing because that is one of the top 5 biggest industries that the country sees, right? They're not going to throw those dollars away. Same with sports. Sports is like top 5 producing industries this country sees. So, and case in point, people still in school. They tried, people was getting back to school stuff, even though everyone's back at home now, right? So the money still got made, and then they sent them home, right? So this knowing that this is how the world is going to operate has made it more, I want to say easier, but made it just a lot more comfortable for me to have some comfort in decision making. I think people got frozen and were on pause because they weren't sure what was going to happen, right? And so decision making was like paused or halted or delayed. I didn't have any of that because I knew this money was going to still get made. And so as long as money's still getting made, then all the other things, is going to be business as usual. They're going to switch it up however they switch it, but it's still going to be business as usual because dollar bills aren't going to stop getting made, right? So
Mhm.
because I knew that, and because I felt that it was very much a matter of making these steps. So still reaching out to the mentor, still like saying, all right, this is going to happen. I need to make a move. What kind of moves can I make? And just doing it that way. So I just didn't pause. I didn't stop. I just looked at the pandemic as another potential event that could happen again next year, right? And I also look at the coronavirus as something that's not going anywhere. I think I downloaded and paid for behavioral data um, from March through April to show the differences in what people were doing as it related to food and purchasing. And then with that, I also decided to make my transition. So I think it said that it would take until 2021 for 60% of the buyer population to be comfortable with returning to things as normal. And so that's like 2 years at the time, because it was March, and now we're talking in the 2021, still 2020 at the time. So um, I I just thought very seriously about that, and that's what led to our transition from physical to online, and that's what led to our transition of being restaurant to market pantry, just from the spending of consumer dollars on food and even the timing. Before the coronavirus, 11 to 3 was the most prominent buying time for food in America. After the coronavirus, it's 3 to 9.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. So, man, you just shared so much, man. I need like another 30 minutes because I would do a deep dive in so much what you just shared. So many gems there. I hope you all are taking notes. All right, so we're wrapping up here. We have about 3 other thematic questions that we typically ask. One of them I'm going to ask for the last 2 is, what do you want people to know about Yumvillage that they may not have known before? And it kind of leads into the next one. What is your superpower? What is your value proposition? What do you think really separates you from the competition, aside from just the business acumen that you're exhibiting right now?
Yeah, I think what, like, if anyone's a basketball fan, like, I like to look at it like I call myself Steph Curry, not in terms of shooting the lights out, but in terms of just being a revolutionary and like the things that you need to do to change the game, right? And so before me, I'd say that, the different types of entrepreneurship, you have your leaders, right? And so I've always identified with being a transformational leader, right? Like, I make this joke, the group effect. You take an A student, you put that A student with a bunch of C students, that A student might eventually become a C student. You take a C student and you put that C student with a bunch of A students, then that C student will eventually become an A student. You take me, you put your boy with a bunch of F students, I guarantee every single one of them is coming down as a B plus A or something close to it, right? So I feel like my ability to pull the best out of people, or part ways as friends, is something that's been able to keep me rocking in the business. And anybody, you can ask anybody. I'm friends with people who I've terminated. Like, at the end of the day, I've been able to separate the emotion from the business and just objectively operate to the best interests of all parties involved. And like, I do that to a T. I'm always over communicating. I believe in systems. We do open book management at the restaurant, so everybody knows how much money is coming in. Everyone knows how much money is being spent. Everybody knows what everybody's making. I'm pretty public with all that stuff. So I feel like my superpower is just doing a good job of connecting the dots with people and making sure that people are able to understand themselves. I'm an INFJ. I guess that helps a little bit in that too. And then the other question was just response to what we're doing to keep going, I guess. Is that the gist of it?
You kind of answered both questions.
Cool. All right.
The other question we typically ask to wrap up here is, what's your spirit animal?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I used to say that my spirit animal is like a wolf because I got this pack mentality. Like I like to get together in packs and stuff. But right now I think it's like a bear because I'm really just packing up as much as I can so it can hibernate for a while.
I love it. I love it.
So Godwin, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to learn more about you, learn more about Yumvillage, all that good stuff, what is the best way to do that?
At Yumvillage, so and this is another tidbit, right? For the closing. When I first started Yumvillage, one of the things that was very important to me was I wanted to be able to have a name that was easily recognizable, that was exclusive to me, that I wouldn't have to pay extra SEO costs for because it would already be unique to me. And so that's why I went with Yumvillage, because it was 99 cents on GoDaddy. When I typed Yumvillage in on a Google search, nothing else really came up. And so I knew that I had something for myself. And so despite everyone telling me that the name sucked and it didn't make any sense, I decided to go with Yumvillage. So you can catch me at Yumvillage Everything because I have all of the Yumvillage names.
That makes it easy. And also, we do typically ask too, like, what is, one very important lesson you want to leave us with? But you've shared so many. And I think, to be honest, that is a really important lesson for entrepreneurship. You need to be thinking way ahead.
Yes.
That as well. And it's okay if initially people are like, what are you doing? Right? That leaves it with, well, Godwin, we really appreciate you taking the time and talking to us today. This is one of those lives that we will rewatch over and over and over again to grab those nuggets of wisdom. Anyone who is watching, please feel free to share your thoughts and comment and share this with anyone else you feel it could use this advice as well, and reach out to Godwin, learn more about Yumvillage, go eat their food.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. We appreciate that. And then if I could say one more advice thing is, as an entrepreneur, everyone's going to start telling you, oh, you should do this. Oh, you should do that. One caveat is I don't take advice from anyone who isn't a subject matter expert on the advice they're giving. I don't tell people that, but that's just how I roll. So I'll listen to everyone's stories of how I should do my business all day. But unless that person is a jerk chicken expert, I'm not really paying attention to what they're telling me about jerk chicken. If this person isn't a finance expert, I'm not really paying attention to, like, I listen to Jawad on finance stuff because he's got finance background, right? Anybody else is like, oh, you should do this with your money, and they don't have like a pot to piss in. I'm not listening to. So just take that for what it is. You source your advice. Be vigilant where it comes from.
Love that. Well, thank you again.